KLTV soundcheck, KLTV soundcheck.
I brought my blood pressure medication.
Okay, I guess she opened up the meeting. I just didn't hear it. So welcome to the Tuesday meeting of the BOCC. We have a retired pastor, our friend from the Minister Association, will lead us in invocation today.
Well, Heavenly Father, you say in your word that you promote leaders and you demote leaders. And I just thank you for the promotion of the three that we have here right now, because I feel like you are having a good day when you put them in office, and I'm grateful for them and their leadership. You say to leaders to get 6 things from you. And I know I could go through all those 6 things, but the number one thing you said to be sure to get from you is wisdom. And so I pray that you would give these men wisdom to lead, the kind of wisdom that comes from your throne, to see things the way you see them and to understand the workings of all that goes into leading this county. So I ask for wisdom for them. I pray for protection and health over them and their families and their support staff and all the workers for the county that do so much to make life here enjoyable and a blessing. So especially during this season where we seem to have one storm after another, I pray especially for protection over all those who are out serving beyond this building, serving the community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Those that'd like to join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'll just give you before I get into approval of other things, the meeting today I've been told item number 7, it's a motion item from Public Works, has been pulled. We haven't got all the documentation on that, so that will have to come back to us. So item 7 has been pulled from the agenda. We have a public hearing today at 9:30, so I'll be cognizant of that time and start on time. And then we have a work session at 10 with building and planning. That's kind of where we're at today. Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of December 15th to 17th.
Motion to approve minutes of December 15th through 17th.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Any comments, questions, corrections? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. I'll run through consent agenda. Under agreements, contracts, bid awards, Public Works, a supplement agreement number 5 to local agency standard consultant agreement with Foundation Engineering to cover ongoing work of Dyke Road reconstruction project and the Tower Road Rock Creek Bridge. We're extending that agreement through December 31st, 2026. At this point in time, not adding any money to it. Item 2, Sheriff Department. This is a 2-month extension with our current contract with Humane Society of Southwest Washington. They're working on a renewal of that contract. We've asked for a 2 months extension while we get that completed. So this will run services through February 28, 2026. The cost of $92.50 a month. Although I understand if we sign a new contract that goes retro back to the 1st of January. Okay. WSU extension interlocal agreement with Washington State University to provide residents of Cowlitz County with educational programs. We provide them with some funding, $55,000. I think this is just a repeat of what we've done in the past. We also give them a place to stay and do their work. So that's just a renewal of an existing agreement we have. Under letters, letter dated 12/11/25 from the auditor's office regarding the local voters pamphlet administrative rules, and vouchers this last week in the amount of $2,008,617.18. Any questions on consent? Okay, seeing none, I'd call for a motion to approve consent.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to approve consent. Check one more time. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. So we'll move into the one motion item we have.
A lot going on up here today. Gina James, Health and Human Services. Our one item we have today is an amendment to a grant agreement with Lower Columbia School Gardens. We have had a 1-year contract with Lower Columbia School Gardens after a recommendation from our Board of Health to support some of their gardening activities with a lot of the schools in our local area, working on growing and making healthy foods. What we're doing in this amendment is adding $75,000 and extending it through June 30th of 2026. This is being paid for with foundational public health services dollars that come from the state for health activities. We're unsure of what the funding looks like moving forward. So we're doing this amendment, adding just this 6-month amount that aligns it with that funding, when that funding will end. And then we'll have to kind of evaluate after the legislative session to see what that funding looks like moving forward. So that's what we have for today.
Any questions on that one?
Gina, do you happen to know what other resources they have for funding options outside of us?
I know they seek other grants, found maybe like private foundational funding or other state grants that are available. I'm not sure where all of their funding comes from.
Are we the majority of it? Do you know?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
I don't think so. It seems like they were asking for just a portion.
Yeah, don't put these in concrete, but I remember their budget was right around 600,000 total. I think that's a pretty close number. So we're a good chunk of it, but we're not the majority.
That's what I remember too. Yeah.
Any other questions on this one? Lorna? Yeah.
I move approval of item, I'm sorry.
One comment, sorry.
I'm
Hold
looking
on
down.
there,
Go ahead.
Commissioner Farrell. I just have a question. So is this 225 for this 6 months from now to June?
No, so the 225 is the new total contract amount. So we had a one-year contract for the 150,000. We're
Right.
extending it 6 months and adding 75,000 for a
Oh,
total.
to the original 150
Right.
from this last year. Okay, so it's not a brand new 225. Okay,
Right.
that was my question. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I think we're ready for a motion now.
Okay. I move approval of the amendment number 1 grant agreement with Lower Columbia School Gardens.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the amendment number 1 to the grant with Lower Columbia School Gardens. Excuse me. Last, I don't see any hands. Nothing up. Call for a vote. Those in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
So we do have some time before 9:30, so I can open it up to public if you have public comments. Mark?
Good morning. My name is Mark Smith. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I have an ask for the commissioners this morning. I would like to ask that the county commissioners, based on the current observation of the ongoing Cowlitz River flood event, I'm writing to express serious concerns regarding the sediment accumulation in the Cowlitz River corridor between the mouth of the Cowlitz and the mouth of the Toutle River. This reach of the river appears to contain a significant buildup of sediment deposits that have accumulated since approximately 1995. These deposits may contribute to increased flood risk, reduced channel capacity, and ongoing ecological and economic impact. In light of these conditions, I respectfully request the county commissioners to formally ask the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Portland District to pause the proposed $56 million sediment retention structure at the SRS Spillway project currently scheduled for July 2026. My concern is that the proposed spillway raise relies on data from 2019, which may no longer accurately reflect the present river conditions, sediment loads, flood behavior, or current environmental and economic considerations. Given the scale of the project, public investment, and the long-term impacts of this project, it is both reasonable and prudent to first conduct a comprehensive feasible study using updated data. Such a study should evaluate whether the proposed SRS spillway raise remains the most efficient solution for protecting public health and safety, reducing risk flood, managing sediment transportation, and supporting long-term natural habitat recovery under present-day conditions. Thank you for your consideration of this request, for your consideration and commitment to be responsible for flood management, environmental stewardship of our community and safety in Cowlitz County. Thank you.
Mark, that was a lot to write down. Have you already sent that to
I
us?
have a
or
letter
could you-
for each of you, yes.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that the same letter that you already sent to the Corps?
I sent one this last night.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I would answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just to follow up on a previous speaker, I would also ask that make sure that that is directly given to our two senators that are kind of absent in our world down here and our Representative Perez. Second item, we're finally getting some notoriety on the Forest Practices Act and the millions of dollars coming out that will impact all of us. The Daily's got some comments or at least showing it, but late, but whatever. So I'm asking that what action are you, the commissioners, able to take and push back on that discussion and get visibility again through our senators and our representatives and throughout the state? And what can we do to support that?
Well, I think our just throwing out, I think probably our best is working through our legislature, trying to do that. I know we are, and I sit on that legislative steering committee. I know We are working some of that through WASAC, the county organization, to try and get some change in that. I know there was talk, I was contacted when we had the meeting over Spokane. Some counties are considering a lawsuit, and if they do, they will be asking if Cowlitz wants to join that. So I know there's some talk of counties that are highly affected by this, like we are, of looking at that alternative. I don't know where it will go, but there is that alternative out there to look. We'll take whatever action that we think we can, because it's a big, well, you've heard me on this before, Ron.
Yes.
It's a taking of private property. There's no science actually behind it that suggests it's going to do what it's going to do. It's basically done on a, we think, or we hope. And the production that we hit in 2020, and I keep going back to this, in 2024, we harvested the lowest amount of timber since the Great Depression. We didn't harvest at a rate that would keep the current operating mills within Washington State in business. So this really is headed down a bad road. You're taking some more out, plus they added another 77,000, which is almost unconscionable to me that you can't harvest. And I think everybody up here agrees it's a big deal, and we'll do whatever we have. Mainly what we have is a bully pulpit. We can talk about it, and we have to have somebody help us do some work on it. And
Well, two very important precedents it is doing. It is a non-representative land grab. The commission that voted on that are not representative of us. They're merely a politically appointed organization as a land grab. That's all it really is. And secondly, there's been no science displayed on that. If science were displayed, it would have said it isn't just a strict land grab. It says that there are science and reasons that foresters can make calculations or do things that says, okay, this is some of the land that is impacted. This is the land that is non-impacted. But again, that engages our leaders, I'll say, to have to make decisions rather than just doing a general edict.
yeah, here's an interesting thing. Commissioner Farrell and I were over at the WASAC annual meeting in Spokane, and we sit in there, we're talking about, there was a discussion on this. And I forget the gentleman's name that was on, but they were talking about the science didn't really support the added buffer. And a person came on and said they had done a study, and I don't remember what state, maybe it was Oregon or whatever, but they found that actually the foliage, once you harvest a hillside or you harvest a section of timber, the initial foliage that comes and starts covering naturally actually produces is better than leaving the trees. And the scientist guy didn't disagree with that.
Yeah, exactly.
So that just kind of cemented it in my mind. That's all it is. I think you're exactly right. It's just a land grab
Right. Well,
with nothing, no real science behind it.
that's clearly the observation with wildlife also, the young growth and the growth, the coverage, et cetera. And thirdly, the most important part, it sets a precedent of them moving into the west or the east side of the Cascades and throughout the state with these successful land grabs, which is not good for any of us. Thank you.
Yeah.
I heard this morning on the radio, and I'm not sure where they got this data, but they were talking about this particular issue. And they said that the economic impact to Cowlitz County alone was $258 million as it, filtered through everything with regards to the
Right.
timber that we're not going to be able to access. But to address your question, Ron, I was listening to a podcast, and I want to say that it was in Minnesota. 98 mayors within that state came together and signed a letter, very similar to what we did with the river and the sediment issues. And they wrote it to the governor saying that your actions have got us to the point to where we are fiscally in a corner now, and we are unable to make good, sound financial decisions for our communities because of the decisions you have taken and the decisions you have made financially have now implicated us. And so I think what needs to start happening is that as opposed to just the county commissioners going to our legislators, we as a community need to come together and say, this, enough is enough. We're done with this. This can't continue to go on this way. You know, very, very similar to the way that our governor is writing letters to the federal government about their impact to his state due to his policies and not receiving funding. I think we can go ahead and reciprocate that same type of thing, but we need to do it collectively as one voice, not just as the county commissioners, in order, I think, for us to get any traction. I wasn't aware of this, but I guess the deal with the sediment retention structure and Cowlitz River was on Channel 8 News last week. So it's starting to, as we continue to push, we're going to start to get some traction moving forward. And I really feel that's the only way we're going to get any attention or anything done.
Well, to elaborate on that a little bit, Minnesota issue, those governors spelled out they had an $18 billion surplus, and in a few short years now they have a $3 billion deficit. One other quick comment, in my opinion, any unelected board that starts passing rules or regulations that, for example, taking a private property, which in my mind is a violation of the Constitution, I think they should have the same requirement we have. They should have to go back to the legislature, make the legislature face the decision. They do represent us. But these unelected boards that sit and wave a magic wand and pass rules they have no idea whether it's going to work or not. And they don't have any idea if the science is real or not, but they can sure dream it up and come up with an answer that they like. There's got to be some restriction on all of these mandates that affect all of us so drastically and bind us to situations that are absolutely untenable.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I
Absolutely. Mr. Kaiser.
Chairman Rick and commissioners, seeing as how we're on this topic, today's daily news, county to lose $258 from logging limit. If you read through the article, they get to 258 million, but you got to love the headline right there.
Yeah.
And what you guys need to do as county commissioners, it says in there, the vote was 7-5 on a 13-person board, which it was there, and I watched them vote. The representative of the Association of Counties abstained.
Yeah.
I believe her name was Heidi Eisenhower from Jefferson County.
Yeah, we talked about that.
She abstained. That is unforgivable.
Yeah.
I mean, even though she would have voted against it, as we would like, or most people in this room would like, it wouldn't have changed the day. But at least she would have stood up and been counted. And if you're going to sit on one of them boards, you have to be counted. You can't elect to stay at home. That's, like I said, that's unforgivable what she did that day. Thank you very much.
There was discussion on that too.
a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Is she appointed by Wasac?
How that happens is Wasac comes up with, in this case, they came up with 3 candidates. And then it goes to the governor and the governor picks one to put on there. So Wasac does have a role to, provide names. The governor does not have to take those names, but they're encouraged to take the ones out of there. And my question when we were over at Wasac, because I was questioning this because like a lot of you, I wasn't happy that she would abstain. I said, how do we vet these people? How does Wasac vet these people? Do they just raise their hand or do you have some kind of process? And I don't recall really getting an answer. I don't know if Commissioner Farrell heard an answer. I didn't really hear an answer.
No.
Yeah. But it's, Mr. Kaiser, it's something that lives with me and they'll hear about it as I keep going to these meetings. I don't let that kind of stuff go. Got about 5 minutes before public hearing, if you got anything else. Might take a minute of your time since we're closing in on the end of the year. And we're talking about meetings over there. I got to tell you, I hear, I go to these meetings and you hear things, and I think some of it's in jest, but I think even in jest, there's some truth to it. You'll hear you know, this job would be easy if it didn't have the public, those type of things, you know, and that always makes me cringe because the only reason I sit here is because of the public. I don't sit here because Rick Dahl wanted a new title or Rick wanted this or he wanted that. And I sit here because I felt like you guys need a voice when I saw all the stuff that happened during COVID and just you can't work here anymore. You got to close this. You got to do this. I said, somebody's got to get in there. Somebody's got to be a screwdriver in that cog and mess some of that up. So that always kind of takes me aback. I want you to know, if you ever hear that from us, you need to come up and Jethro us because that's not why we're here. We're here because of you. And I'll be honest with you, there's some places, and you hear it in the cities, they limit how much interaction you can have. They don't even want you talking with department heads. And I'm sure there's people over here that don't like it either. But you're the reason we're here. And you're the reason there's not a decision a day goes by that I don't think about what we're taking out of your wallet or what we're taking from your rights. And if we start delving into any of those, then I get testy. And so I hope you feel like the three of us sit up here for you and we're not sitting up here to try and ignore you. I appreciate that you come in and you speak. I even appreciate the people that come in and will rip us. I mean, they have a right to speak too. And so I never worry about that. I may banter with them a little bit, but they certainly have that right. And they're certainly welcome to come and do that. And I don't think I'm speaking just for myself. I think our team up here is pretty much set that you're the reason we do this thing. I don't do it for personal gain, or I don't do it because I need a title or any of that nonsense. We do it because you need somebody to carry some of the water at times, and that's what we're here to do. So that's my year-end speech.
Well, year in, so let's just push a thought here. We are a sovereign city within a sovereign county within a sovereign state. So sovereignty has some meaning somewhere. At least our state is trying to push that. So I would also ask you to inquire, what does sovereignty mean for county? What do we have to follow? Can they steal $250 million from us through a land grab by an unrepresentative committee in this state of a supposed representative democratic republic?
I hesitated coming up here because I didn't want to portray myself as being willing to pray for you all and then come up and complain about something. But I'm going to do it anyway. So, Steve, you mentioned that what's really needs to be involved here against this land grab, shall we call it, is a collective effort. Have you got some suggestions about how that could get started?
I don't have any formal plans other than thinking of the same people that we brought in for the meeting with regards to the river, the same people that are affected by this, mill owners, CEOs, environmentalists. I mean, if you really take a look at it, like I just went out with a constituent this last week. He wanted to show me his buffers on his land, on his non-riparian streams. And the windfall alone in his creek, there is no more buffer. I mean, there's windfall throughout that entire creek, and there are pools that are created from the windfall, and that non-moving water, you got to think, is warmer than the water that's just moving. And so when you look at the fact that there is no real science-based evidence that is put forth, we go to the people who are affected, the landowners, the people who are affected at the mills with the job and the lack of lumber, the truck drivers, anybody who represents those groups and organizations that are affected by what's been taking place. We need to come together and figure out how we approach this moving forward. Because I got it in trouble for this a little bit on the campaign. with regards to me following the governor's orders, and I got point blank asked, are you going to follow the governor's orders? I'm one who, when I look at what our governor is doing and the letters that he is sending to the federal government with regards to, we will not comply with this because we are this state and we have these policies, this, that, and the other, I'm going to follow his suit. And whatever the ramifications are, they are. But if Olympia is able to do that to the federal government because they're feeling the pinch from the lack of funds from the federal government, we have the same right to do the same thing to the people that are doing it to us. That's my thought on it.
I agree with you on that. What I wanted to find out what your thoughts were there, but I wanted to just complain about something. So I got my property tax evaluation back in September, I think is when it arrived. And I know I had 30 days to respond to it, but to be honest with you, my fault was I didn't pay much attention to it. And then when I did pay attention to it, my jaw dropped open because
Oh, man, I think I dropped the ball on this one. You told me about this one and
but
I apologize.
That's all right, Rick. I wasn't going to quit. And you have a couple of gals in your office there, ladies, who are very helpful. And I know what to
Okay.
do, even though it's a little too late to complain to the Board of Equalization. I can still submit some paperwork. But I just wanted to say that when I got my property tax valuation, I found out that the tax on my land was going up from 39,000 to 65,200. There's a 66% increase. And one would think, well, maybe it's because the property values were the prices for homes out there. I live in a gated community, Willow Point Loop. Would think that maybe the values were going sky high because of demand, but they've leveled off. So I couldn't quite make sense of why it would jump that much. On top of all that, the valuation of my condo went down 5%, went down 14,000. So that didn't make any sense to me. So I went in and talked to the assessor's office, and nobody had an answer. And finally, this one gal at the desk, she went back and got a young man who came up. They were all very polite, but I got an explanation that didn't make any sense to me. They basically put it back on you guys and said, well, it was the commissioners that determined what we should be doing. And so that's why you got a high evaluation. So I didn't buy that for a second. So that's why I'm not here to complain to you guys, but it doesn't make sense to me that, and it wasn't just my property that received this. There was a number of condos that I've seen so far in our association who had the same thing. In fact, the figures for their land and their condo were the same as mine. It was like a cookie cutter thing that was going on there. And it doesn't make any sense to me that the land value would jump 66%. I just can't. In current environment, it doesn't make any sense to me why it would jump that much. It almost feels like, speaking of a land grab, this is like a slow way to get seniors who are on fixed incomes or limited incomes out of their property, out of their homes. That's what it feels like. It doesn't make any other sense there. So maybe the land grab is a lot bigger than what we think. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Okay. We need to head into, Kathy, you want to head into this? And as soon as, what she have?
She has items 8.
Oh, okay. When we get through the public hearings, we'll go back to comments. I'm just kind of stuck at when we announced it at a time. Okay. So we have 7 items in public hearings. We're going to take them all individually, I'm understanding. So items 8 through 13 need to be adopted because then it rolls into item 14, which is the budget. Did I state that correctly? Okay.
So good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. I know you guys have been waiting for this every year with bated breath to
Yeah,
hear the six-year plan and the annual
it's finally
program.
here. I treated myself this morning.
All right, so we start with the six-year program, and then we'll move into the annual program, and I will do my presentation for both all together because it'll make more sense. But they need to be adopted in that order per the WACs to meet our standards for the County Road Administration Board to stay in good practice. So we're going to start with the 2026 to 2031 six-year transportation improvement program. So I'll give you guys a little information about the system as a whole and then move into our six-year plan. So Cowlitz County approximately operates and maintains 527 center line miles of roadway. And within that system, we have 68 county-owned bridges. Of those 68, actually, that was at the end of October. Since that time, we finished our Garlock Road project, and that has added another bridge. So we're actually up to 69 at this point. So of those 69 bridges, 37 are 50 years or older. So more than 54% of our bridges are more than 50 years old. Excuse me. So our six-year plan, we update this annually. And it contains our projected projects for the next 6 years. The first year is fiscally constrained, that we will have the money secured to go ahead and work on those projects. The second year, generally 75 to 90% is already fiscally constrained, where we have our match and our grant program set up into place. So we look at our projects, we have priority arrays. We run 2 different priority arrays every year. There are these big sheets. One is on our culverts and one is on our arterial collectors, if anybody's ever interested. And the priority array for the roadways is based on accidents, your average daily traffic, and the other items that go along with that respect. Our culverts are based on condition, also includes our average daily traffic and size and the flooding impacts to both the roadway and the condition of the pipe. So our current six-year program, in 2026, we have anticipated projects worth $24.4 million. In 2027, $18.4 million. 2028, 25.9, 2029, 25.9, and then the final 2 years, 57.3. So that's $151.9 million projected on our project list. This list is constantly changing. Weather events change it, and this only addresses capital improvements, so bridge replacements, large culvert replacements, roadway corridor projects. It does not include our annual chip seal, overlay and striping, guardrail repairs. Those are done through our maintenance programs, so it's not included in our six-year program. On our 2026 to 2031 program, we are anticipating $77.4 million of federal funding, $30.7 million of state, and then the remaining $43.8 million will have to come from our local dollars. So at this time, that is not a number that we obviously can meet. We base our capital program on here's what comes in from the road fund. You guys all pay your taxes, and what we collect for the road fund goes to pay for personnel, our equipment, our materials, and our maintenance program, and anything that's left over is what we use to match our federal grants. And then there are projects that we have to do with all local funding. So that is how we develop our six-year plan and come up with this. The program, as I stated, the first 2 years are projects we are either funding completely locally or have our grants with the match. The second year is in the same state, and then moving forward out. Some of the projects in the third year, we already have funding because bridges generally take 2 to 4 years to design and construct, and so we get our funding in advance. So that's why as you go down, you'll see on the program that a lot of things are unsecured or planned funding. So any questions on the overall 6-year program? Okay, so I'll move into what we have planned for 2026. So we have several big projects for 2026, most of which were projects that were planned for 2025 that have been delayed for 2026. The first project is we call them a joined project that is already under construction, and that's the South Cloverdale Road, Comfort Road intersection improvements and the South Cloverdale Road construction. This project runs from Todd Road to Comfort Road. We're correcting vertical horizontal curves, removing items in the clear zone, so fixed structures that when you run off the road, you'll hurt and injure yourself, and then improving the intersection site distance. That total combined project is over $7 million, and that funding is broken down between federal, state, and local dollars funding that project, and the construction is already underway. The second project on our program is the Allender Road Bridge replacement. This is milepost 7.73 to 0.75. This bridge is heavily load rated, so heavily you cannot take a full septic pump or tuck over it. This project was awarded on December 9th. So this was received very competitive bids, and this project is funded 100% up to $2 million with federal bridge money. So that project will be starting early spring. We'll be putting a temporary bridge out there and then constructing the final. We expect that to be completed by the end of 2026. Dyke Road Reconstruction Phase 2 is our third big project. This has been deferred from last year. This is from milepost 3.05 to 5.32. It's an approximately $5 million project, and it's reconstructing that roadway because the use has changed over the years. It was originally constructed as a local access road in the 50s, so there is no base. So generally a road we build with 9 inches to a foot of rock and then the asphalt on top. This basically was an old gravel road that was chip sealed and has been chip sealed and overlaid in the past, but it cannot carry the current traffic that uses it. This project is being funded with some state money from the County Road Administration Board, but predominantly by local funds. The item that we're waiting for on this project, because the intent was to build it this year, is our U.S. Army Corps 408 permit. I just received an email, I believe it was yesterday, saying that they have, since the federal shutdown, they are now back up and running. They have quite a few people out on vacation, but it should be looked at in early January. So fingers crossed we get that so we can go out to bid soon. The next big project is the Rock Creek Culvert Tower Road Bridge project. For those of you who recall, we lost those culverts a few years ago. We put in the temporary bridge. This is an approximately $4 million project to install a permanent 2-lane bridge. We are tightening up our specs and going out to bid mid to late January on this project. So we should be able to get that in one construction season next year. Those are our big construction projects. We have 6 what we're considering small projects that add up to over $2 million. That's a slide repair on West Side Highway, a slide repair on Butte Hill, some culvert replacements out on Rose Valley Road, a Bates Road embankment repair, and then a head wall repair on Toutle River Road. Those are a mix of local and federal funding. So included in our annual program, we also have our 2026 design projects that total over $3.6 million. And that includes the Pleasant Hill culvert replacement. That is another road where the culvert was washed out. We have a temporary bridge that is funded by FEMA. And so if you've ever worked with FEMA, it's a long process. So we're hoping that by this time next year, we'll have gone out to bid on that project, but I can make no guarantees with FEMA. We also have 3 culvert replacement projects that are federally funded, or 2 that are federally funded, 1 that's state, 2, one's on Gilmore Road, and then there's 2 large what we call short spans out on Delameter Road, that if you drove out there during this most recent flooding, the water was all the way up to the roadway on. So those are under design. We have some culverts laid out at 11.8 on Rose Valley Road, which has some crab money. We have Owl Creek Road Bridge replacement, which is funded by the bridge program, the federal bridge program. Owl Creek Road Bridge, this is on Old Highway 99, just south of the city limits of Kelso. This is the second oldest bridge in our system. It's part of the original highway system. So that is being designed for replacement. We have the other large culvert on Allender Road being designed for replacement, which has secure funding from the Brian Abbott Fish Barrier Removal Board. We have the North Global Creek Road box culvert replacement that is also being funded by Brian Abbott Fish Barrier Removal. It's also a flooding issue for us. Then the two other road corridors is the Tootle Park Road replacement and the Coal Creek Road improvements. Tootle Park Road is total local dollars and Coal Creek is an STP federal funding. So the breakdown of those 2026 projects, it's a total of $24.4 million, of which approximately 4.3 is design money, 800,000 of right-of-way acquisition, and $19.3 million of construction for 2026. The other item that goes on with our annual program that needs to be discussed as part of this hearing is what we call our fixed asset purchases. And so that's the purchase of equipment for the road fund. Where for 2026, we have 3 items scheduled for replacement: a 3/4 ton pickup, a 1-ton sign truck, and a water truck. And the combined of those 3 items is about $400,000 we have in our budget. Just as part of our maintenance program for 2026, we have a chip seal program budgeted at $3 million, an overlay at $1.8 million, and our annual striping project at $650,000. So our maintenance program for 2026 is scheduled at about $5.5 million. So that is my presentation for the 6-year and the annual program. If anybody has questions.
Susan, with the local dollar shortage, what future projects does that impact that we're gonna have to take off the books?
So we have some projects that are locally funded only. So I'm going to move out into more our further out projects, like our 27, 28 projects that we don't have as much secure funding. It's going to impact some of our slide repair projects, because in general, if it's a longstanding slide, it's not eligible for federal or state funding dollars to repair. So there's a slide on Kalama River Road at milepost 13.5 that we're close to finishing up a study that we would estimate that the total repair is $3.5 million. So that would be a project we'd have to save our pennies for to work on. We have several other slides of that nature. We have drainage projects. We have a lot of our local access roadways. So our Young roads are Fallert, where we have issues where they're narrow or there's a curve that's substandard. We have slides on them. Those are projects that we're going to have to carefully consider. And as we're moving forward, once I'm through the projects that we already have grant funding, of looking at limiting our projects moving forward, I'll give you an example of what we've already done. So our South Cloverdale Road project that we're currently constructing is 3/4 of a mile long. Our Coal Creek Road, which is a future project, we knew that we would not be able to afford such a long stretch. So we've cut down the length of that project. So our corridor projects, even when they are grant eligible, we're going to be scaling projects to be able to meet our match. Because right now we have quite a bit of reserves because some of our projects have been deferred. But we're looking at our amount available for capital. So what is beyond staff and beyond what we're putting in the maintenance program. Moving forward, it's going to be $750,000 to $2 million for our match and capital projects, depending on what we bank. So we're having to be looking at our projects to scale them to that size. So a lot of it's also going to be scaling of projects.
Any other up here? I don't see any. We'll open up for public comment on, you're talking about 8 and 9 right now, right?
Yes, so I was talking about
Okay.
8 and 9.
So if there's any public comment on those first two.
Good morning. Thank you, Mark Smith. I hear really good things because, we have good roads in Cowlitz County and our maintenance has been kept up. One of the concerns that I don't see in here that I just wanted to inquire to is connectability. As our county's growing, like Spirit Lake Highway as an example, we have multiple driveways and small roads in there that are not getting connected, I'm familiar with that one, like Reynolds Road over to Shaffron or Sidetown over to headquarters, so that we have some connectability so that we're not dead-ended with these road accesses. Is that, since this is the 6-year plan and it is a capital investment with that, and I know there's a lot of complications there because we also have to work with the developments in those areas to get the easements through there. Are we addressing that to at least obtain the easement opportunity for future connectivity?
So that is my goal when development review is coming in. And one of the things that Public Works is actually currently participating in is we've started a transportation system plan just for that reason, because we do have so many dead end roads. Shaffron, Kalama River Road, Rose Valley, even the big roads just don't have that connection, which is a concern for natural disasters, fires, flooding, all of that. So that is a project we are working on, and we will be holding a public meeting to get community input. One before we've made any planning, which will be in February, and I will make sure I announce dates and times when I'm here. And then again, in the summer, once we've taken all of that information and started combining it and bringing forward a plan to the commissioners and hopefully a policy on what we're going to do with development so that we have a consistent step forward. It will also be brought to the Planning Commission as we move forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your presentation. One of the things that all of us particularly notice is the painting and striping. I believe I heard you say $650,000 for painting and striping. I am highly supportive of that. The fog lines are tremendous for all of us, so please keep that visible.
I would second that. Anything else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing part, so we're ready for, and you want them individually, so we're ready for a motion on item 8 and then a motion on 9.
I move approval of item 8, resolution adopting a 6-year transportation improvement program for years 2026 to 2031.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. We've already held comments, so we'll go straight to the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. We're on 9.
Next one.
Mhm.
I move approval of item number 9, resolution adopting the annual construction program and fixed asset purchases for 2026.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 9. We've held comments, so we'll go straight to the vote. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan, can I just ask a real quick question?
Of course.
About roads? With all this flooding that's gone on, I noticed that there were a couple of roads that went out that the governor declared emergency on getting those repaired. I know that we don't have the same transportation issues on the way up to the monument with regards to the slide that we have up going towards to Mount St. Helens. But is there any way that we can, obviously that's caused an economic impact on our county, that's been sitting there for 2 years. Is there anything that we can do to address that and saying, hey, we want an emergency declaration put on this because this has been sitting for 2 years? Do you know what the plan is to get that repaired? Do you know where we're at with that?
Sure, I know I haven't looked recently, but the last update I had from WashDOT that project was going, I believe, went out for a design build contract this summer, and that the intent was to be under construction in 2026 to try and reopen the roadway. Then once the roadway is reopened, obviously the Forest Service will have to do a reconnaissance of the building. So I'm not sure when the visitor center will be open, but I know the intent is to have the new bridge in place by the end of 2026, the last I read. But I will revisit their website and send you what the updated information is on that.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Hey Kathy, how do you want to kind of, with the exception of 14, do you want to kind of talk about those?
Yes.
And then when we vote on, we'll take them individually. You good with that? Okay.
Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. The first resolution or item up for discussion is our 5-year capital plan. And these are projects that we take on to make sure we have efficient and effective administration of our county government. And the program, this has been previously workshopped with the board. And the program that we're presenting today is a 5-year plan with 2026 total expenses, 6.3 million, 2027 total expenses, almost 4 million, 3.9, 2028, 4 million, 2029, 788,000, and then 2030, 3.5. And most of these projects are items like roof, HVAC, parking lots, fire panels, and some new construction of small facilities. So I recommend adoption of our 5-year capital plan.
So you want us to take them?
Yeah, this item number 10.
Okay. So then I need open public hearing or any questions on the 5-year plan. Okay, seeing none, we'll close and I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval of item number 10, resolution adopting the 5-year capital plan.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. It's already been open to public comment. We'll go straight to the vote. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Okay.
Item 11.
Item 11, their next item is dissolution of one of our funds. It's titled CMH Substance Abuse Administration Fund. These are funds that were overseen by our Human Services area, and they have decided that it would be more efficient to dissolve that fund and move all the activity to their current Human Services Fund. So it's just a dissolution of a fund that's no longer needed.
Are all those funds being administered through HHS now?
Yes, yes. So we would close the fund 14-101 and all the activity would move to fund 14-001.
Okay, seeing no more here, we'll public comment on item 11. Okay. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and entertain a motion for approval.
I move approval of item number 11, the resolution for the dissolution of CMH Substance Abuse Administration Fund and transfer of all assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenses, if any, to the Human Services Fund.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the resolution in number 11. Go straight to the vote. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you. 12.
Okay, item 12 has been previously workshopped. This is amending the fee for services provided by our equipment rental rates. These would be effective January 1, 2026, and we would rescinding resolution 24-101, which was previously approved. Staff have analyzed and presented rates that accurately reflect operating cost of the equipment. And like I said, those were previously workshopped with the commissioners.
Okay. Any questions from us? I don't see any. Open for public comment. Any of that? Okay, seeing none, we'll close. Entertain a motion to approve.
Move adoption of resolution adopting the amended and revised fees for, whoops, wrong one. Yeah, that's the right one.
Okay, we have motion
For
to
services. Go ahead.
approve item 12 on the revised fees for services. Go straight to the vote. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you. 13.
Okay, item 13 is a resolution to amend the fee schedule, setting rates for the water and sewer rates for customers. This was previous, and those would go into effect January 1. This was previously workshopped with the commissioners, and it's an overall increase in the rate from 2025. It's a 4% increase.
Just to be clear on this, when we workshop this, if memory serves me correct, Shauna, could be, the 4% increase is not nearly enough to cover where we're at. Correct? That's just, okay.
Okay. Public comment on that resolution. Okay, seeing none, we'll close. We'll go ask for a motion.
Move adoption of resolution adopting a fee schedule, fees for water and sewer.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the fee schedule. We'll go straight to the vote. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay. 14.
Okay, 14. This is presentation of our 2026 and 2027 budget. Basically, I provided a budget narrative for you. Some of the equipment purchases that are in the budget were also, for example, in the 6-year road plan, things like that. During our budget, we had public workshops that began in September and were held in September, October, and even some in November, and even some in December. So we had several things during our IT workshop. We made a decision to use for one-time funding to reduce IT's billings due to their fund balance, about $600,000. Then later we came back and we further reduced their actual reserve fund balance about $2 million, which resulted in one-time savings for our internal billings. We also had a significant increase in our risk management cost, primarily from the Washington County Risk Pool. We had originally anticipated about 567,000 increase. Then in the beginning of December, we received the invoicing and it was off their original estimate. They added another additional 252,000 over what we had anticipated. So it was a little over $800,000 increase in our risk management. We previously workshopped that and talked to y'all about that. We had personnel workshops, and for the general fund, we saw an overall decrease in number of positions. And then we also had items where, for example, drug court had positions that were previously funded by the behavioral mental health sales tax will now be funded by the opioid settlement funds for 2026. The sheriff's office had 2 positions previously funded by behavioral mental health sales tax. They'll now be funded by the opioid settlement funds for 26 and 27. We had other personnel changes in which the treasurer and auditor's office would be funding portions of salaries off of special revenue funds. And then we had 5 positions that were eliminated by the Health and Human Services Department. So in total, the budget provides for 573 positions over all funds. Additional items that were included in this budget are increased personnel costs related to COLAs, as well as contractual agreements or authorizations made during the budget workshops, including step increases for positions meeting their qualifications. The levy was presented to the board. This budget does not include any increase in the levies. We did not take the 1% allowed or any banked capacity. The proposed expenditures for the general fund are $74.7 million in 2026, and they're $80.2 million for 2027. Additionally, just to note, our ARPA funds should be fully expended by the end of 26. That's approximately 7.2 million of special revenue funds. We also have just started spending the opioid, as I discussed, on personnel, and but that fund also has a $3 million fund balance that hasn't been expended yet. And during this budget, we discussed many things: challenges, facility needs, the correction department's jail medical services was renewed with a new provider, and it increased 1.2 million. That also impacted our juvenile detention budget as well. We saw our sales tax not rebound quite to the levels of 2023, but more flat with 2024. So we are going to remain budgeting those flat for 2026 and 2027. The fund balance in the general fund right now in this projected budget is a little bit more than a 1-month reserve, but it's not quite 2 months reserve as seen in previous years. During 2025, we reviewed our jail reimbursement rates and our district court case reimbursement rates, and those will result in some additional revenues. We also had our facilities cost allocation reviewed and updated for both internal and external users of facilities. We started making recommendations to the departments. Many of our departments cut their budgets based upon looking at historical trends, and also reduce their travel, training, and subscription expenses. Here at this building, we are reducing expenses by eliminating the security services at the administration annex and museum buildings. But we also have increases in deputy overtime expenses for the courts that are held at the jail facility. Those increased. And for group insurance, we're now have a new program, a new plan, a new provider. We elected to make some changes on that in an effort to avoid excessive escalation of premium increases, and to be able to better determine our actual claim cost for the future. For 2027, we had a lot of one-time budget reductions for 26. 27 doesn't have those reflected. So our 2027 expenses are higher because of that. And it's going to affect our fund balance. So the current budget for 2027 would require approximately an $8 million to $9 million balance to make 2 months of reserves. And we only have about 1 month of reserves. So as I've stated before, it's my recommendation that we have some type of task force to look at ways to increase revenues or decrease expenses for 2027. And that's my budget narrative, overview of the budget.
I probably said plenty on this, but obviously it's, you don't have to be a genius to see we can't stay down this path. So we're gonna have to figure it out over the next year or so to at least get to break even.
Yeah.
No easy solutions. I know that.
Yeah. Yep. 2027 has approximately $8 million in right now sitting in miscellaneous revenue, but that's a placeholder until you have an opportunity to really analyze and look at the budget, to look at.
Yeah.
It's until you have a chance to revise the 2027.
Yeah. So we're kind of at a drop dead date. We need an approved budget to work with, and then it's not unusual. We go through amendments like 4 times a year or whatever and look at it. So we'll have to.
Yeah. The other thing to note.
Look at things during 2026.
The other thing to note is, of course, when we're preparing these budgets, we prepare them under the assumption that every expense that's budgeted will be spent, and that doesn't normally happen. So,
I know we get some of that, and hopefully we saw a little bit of a glimmer yesterday with increased sales tax revenue, and we've seen mortgage rates come down, so we're seeing some
recording fees
yeah, some activity there. So hopefully there's some things in process that will help a little bit. I still remain doubtful the way our state sees things at the Capitol, that we're primed for any long-term growth. I think they're doing a lot of things that really harm us as cities, counties. But any other questions from us on this? Comments on it?
Well, comments, I'm gonna comment on a couple of things. I have some real issues that costs that are beyond our control. Insurance, which is having a 40+% increase in insurance costs, which equates to 4 or 5% of our annual budget, that our departments have to pay their share of that. And as that burden falls on their budget, they automatically see a decrease. If you just use last year's numbers and you take that extra 5% out of their budget to pay for insurance, in addition to that, union contracts, those are built into the system. They're contracts that we're not going to sit here and change. So there's automatic adjustments to wages that goes into that. Things that affect the budget that all by itself negatively affects every department.
Yeah.
some of them more than others.
Court mandates.
I think that the things that get passed down from the state that become unfunded mandates that lands on the county and ultimately on individual departments, some of them affected more than others. Everybody gets penalized in this. Nobody's in favor of raising taxes, for God's sakes. And at the same time, it's tough to sit here and watch things like deferred maintenance. I have real heartache over the juvenile center. Here's a building that, how old is the juvenile center? 20, 30 years old, 25 years old?
Probably somewhere in here. I don't know exactly, but
There's a building that taxpayer dollars are invested in that is now sitting with almost $10 million of needed repairs. Leaking roofs, et cetera, that I can't hardly stomach the thought that the easy answer for government is to keep doing deferred maintenance and pass that on to somebody else who's going to be sitting in this chair. That's a taxpayer asset that should be taken care of and maintained. Every single building that the county has a responsibility for, there should be some level of responsibility to maintain those structures, to protect those assets for the county taxpayers. So I desperately struggle with how this is built up to the point that it is right now. And it's easy to take a hatchet from the back end and say, here's the numbers we've got. Everybody just cut your budget. We can't tell departments how to run their department. I don't have any problem with not being able to tell you who to hire, who to fire, how to manage your supplies and what monies to cut. That's your business as department heads. But to sit here and say that we have no responsibility, even if it means increasing taxes and laying people off, somewhere there has to be a balance to make everything work and not risk taxpayer assets because we don't want to face the music and have to collect those funds somewhere, some way to protect those assets. Even if in the future we have to sell those assets off and abandon them, it'd be better to have them in some level of condition that they have a value rather than to say it's cheaper to tear the building down and build a new building. So I struggle greatly with a lot of the deferred maintenance issues that are in here, with the uncontrollable costs that are going up that we don't have control over. Insurance especially is one terrible example that is just going through the roof. I guess one of the things, and I've been sitting in this room in the audience for 3+ years now, up here for a year. I'd like to ask people, because I've never heard anybody say, gee, I'm really thankful for these taxes I'm paying. Anybody got any examples of taxes that they're really happy that they pay? Nobody's ever come to the mic that I've ever witnessed to say, I'm thankful for the road taxes. I'm thankful for the taxes I pay that provide police protection or for the courts. We all seem to focus on the things we don't like to pay, and we get zeroed in on all the negative side of it. But there are some advantages. We are an agency of the state by definition. And I even hate to say that because I do believe in county sovereignty. And I want to see us function. I want to see us be not profitable, but accountable and reliable in our finances and going forward for us to make things work. So right now, as much as I see problems with where we're at, there has to be some type of solution that we've got to sit down and come up with. And hopefully we can do it jointly and not be some one-sided axe falling on everybody.
Are you-
Go ahead.
Okay. I would echo a lot of the sentiments that have been said to this point. I would also add, though, that to a degree, to the things that we can control, I think that we really need to do our due diligence in making sure that we are actively involved in those things. I have, as grim as this picture looks, I have faith and confidence that we can get through this. Okay, I really do. For example, there are things in 27 that we're not going to have to pay, like, you know, the increase in the risk pool premium. The new carrier, we're going to save almost $1 million a year in that. So there are things that I see for moving forward that I'm optimistic about. But we have to get back to, and this is what's difficult, with all of the garbage that we don't have any control over, we do have to get back to the original funding source that we use as a county. And if you go back 5, 7, 10 years, that original funding source for that amount of time was the 1% tax that we took on real estate and the road shift. It tastes that's like vinegar coming out of my mouth. But when we received the ARPA funds and we got a respite from that 1% and from the road shift money there, that was what, even then we're still running a deficit. That wasn't even enough to keep up with our contractual obligations that we have. So to Commissioner Farrell's point, there's got to be a balance. We have to get back to, it's not a new tax. We just chose not to take it for the last 3 or 4 years. We need to get back to that original funding source to give us a little bit of cushion. And that's what's difficult about that is all the stuff, the unfunded mandates that the state shoves down our throats that make what we should be doing that much more difficult. And it is a problem. And I don't know that there's a permanent solution to it. I do believe with everything inside of me that at some point we're going to have to stand up with one voice to the hill and say enough is enough. And I don't know what that looks like, but we can't continue down this road. Legislatively, something has got to change. And with a lot of these things, our hands are tied, but there are things that we can control. And I feel like we really need to focus on the things that we can control. I'm optimistic about the people that we have here at the county to help us get through this and come up with solutions moving forward. But that means that starting in January, we got to work. We got to buckle down and we got to make some changes to what's going on. And we have to alter our course as much as we possibly can. And to the areas that we can't alter them, I mean, guys, I'm teaching my kids the history of our country. We went to war over 3%, 3 cents on tea. And here we are at just taking what the government's shoving down our throats. At some point, it's got to stop. We have to stand up at some point. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that means pulling everybody together, getting 99 mayors and, you know, however many commissioners we have in the state, but something has to give. And that's for a future conversation. For right now, we need to get this done, and we need to get to work starting in January so that 2027 is taken care of.
Okay, open up public comment.
Thank you, commissioners. I spoke previously on this. You can only work with what you have. You haven't created the situation, and we rely on you to make the best choices you have. The citizens of this county have voted in ways, et cetera. We had several major projects in this county that were killed, some by citizens and some by people driving in from south and north and impacting that. But the citizens of the county have to stand up and decide what they want, et cetera. We just talk example coal. The coal that the people didn't want, we still ship through here every single day going north. So decisions based upon facts and data have to be taken into account. And it isn't only the county budget, it's the school budgets and everything else. And we just talked about the land grabs. Every land grab takes more money out of our funding for our projects, et cetera. I'm working on a project in Eastern Washington or another land grab. You take public or private ground and move it into public ground. And that's a win, that's a lose-lose no matter what you do. So I stand here in support of you. You have to do what you have to do with what you have to work with. And it isn't your fault what they gave you to work with, but choose and make good decisions for us. Thank you.
I have to come to more of these meetings in person. They're exciting. My name is Mark Smith, and I have a couple questions on the budget, which I have researched over the years. Most counties have the option in the state of Washington to operate either on annual budgets or biannual budget. There's advantages to each, but in our situation, being a not larger county, but medium to smaller county, annual budgets tend to give you a lot more flexibility to adjust quicker and to make decisions in real time. I've been in private business for 30 years. I've never met a businessman that has a biannual budget. They have a future plan, but they don't have a biannual budget. You have an annual budget because you can only operate with what your funds are. The state allows you to make that choice. It's probably not easy to change since you've been operating in this operation for the last, I think, 4 decades or 3 decades. But that might be a consideration because it allows you to tighten belts. I know department heads won't appreciate it. A lot of people won't appreciate it, but that's facts. The second thing is, as a taxpayer, my county is a service organization, okay? You're not a business, you're not a bank. Assets are not entitlement to me. Services. When we build county buildings, they're mausoleums that never get maintenance and they never get taken care of. And they're also not on the books for taxes. So one thing you might want to consider is leasing buildings in the area instead of the ownership, because then it will free you up from some of these expenses that you're looking at. Cost of operation is key, not the assets that the county builds. I'm not going to buy stock in Cowlitz County. You're not going to sell me shares. You know, you get my taxes. So those are 2 things that you may want to consider moving forward. It can lessen liabilities, which you're talking in insurance, and it does lessen the maintenance and allows you more flexibility than to wind up with something that was an albatross that isn't working for us. All I want from my commissioners is to be able to provide services to the community, you know, and my taxes, I'll gladly pay for those services. And I think that's a direction you're going to see more and more smaller counties in the state that, you know, we can deal with those issues. We can't deal with what comes out of Olympia until we get, you know, a new legislative movement. But those are just some ideas. So I share them openly. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing part. Entertain a motion.
I move approval of item 14, resolution adopting the 2026 and 2027 biannual budget.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. It's already been public comment. I think everybody understands we got work to do, so call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We got a work session. You had do you mind if I take a comment? If you still have a comment, do you want to? Yeah, before we head into the work session. I didn't want to forget about you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Stephanie Clark McNally. I'm a co-founder and president of Humanistic Hope, a local boots on the ground harm reduction, mutual aid, and prevention nonprofit here in Kelso, Cowlitz County. I also serve on the Cowlitz County Homeless Housing Task Force. I work in public service and serve as a relief, domestic violence, and sexual assault advocate, among many other service-oriented extracurricular activities here in our county. I share these rules because they shape how I see issues, both personally and from a policy and system perspective. I'm here today because homelessness, mental illness, and substance use disorders are not isolated challenges. They are deeply connected, and together they represent public health issue that affects our entire community. Especially during the winter months, when people become more vulnerable, the impact reaches far beyond those individuals. It affects hospitals, first responders, shelters, public servants, families, and ultimately the health and safety of our county as a whole. I'm happy for the taxes that go to pay for these services. Recently, our community lost a life during the severe weather. The loss has stayed with many of us, and I don't raise it to place blame. I don't pretend to know all the internal decisions or budget constraints involved. I share it because moments like this invite us to reflect carefully on policy, planning, and prevention. And I ask how we can strengthen our systems so fewer people fall through the cracks. This issue is personal for me. I grew up in this community. I experienced housing instability, addiction in my family, and reliance on public systems at a young age. By the time I turned 18, both my parents were unhoused. Those experiences are what led me into public service and community work today, and why I believe prevention matters deeply. From a policy perspective, prevention is also practical. Waiting until crisis is the most costly and least effective approach. When people cannot access shelter, mental health care, or substance use support early, the result is often emergency room visits, law enforcement involvement, hospitalizations, and sometimes loss of life. These outcomes place additional strain on systems that are already working hard with limited capacity. I also want to acknowledge that prevention does not always require large new programs or major funding increases. Often it comes down to coordination, communication, and planning. Low-cost prevention-focused steps can include clear severe weather shelter activation plans, identifying volunteer or peer support capacities in advance, using existing community spaces during emergencies, strengthening interagency communication and supporting outreach and harm reduction / mutual aid efforts that reduce crises before they escalate. I do not stand here with all the answers. I don't pretend to know the answers. I stand here because I care about this community and I believe that prevention benefits everyone. The neighbors we serve, the staff responding, and the leaders making these difficult decisions. My gentle ask today is this, that we keep these conversations open about how we, the people, can support not only our unhoused and vulnerable neighbors, but also you, our commissioners, our local leaders, as you navigate complex challenges. Many community members want to help. We want to collaborate. We want to volunteer. We want to problem solve alongside you. Creating ongoing spaces for dialogue and partnerships allow us to share responsibility and move forward together. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your service and your willingness to listen. I appreciate the work I appreciate the work already being done, and I look forward to continued conversations and collaboration as well as we work towards healthier, safer Cowlitz County for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that message.
Okay, building and planning, as you work your way up, tomorrow, this building closes at 11:30. Of course, we're closed for Christmas, so Merry Christmas to everybody. And then next Thursday, January 1st, we'll also be closed for New Year's. Okay. Adam, are you running the show? Okay.
He is running the show.
I'm getting
He
head
is.
nods.
I'm gonna just start kind of where we got here and how we are, or how we got here and what we're up to. Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. In front of you today is this workshop that started in 2021. We, at the time, the board approved a grant to be gotten through the state at the tune of, with a county match of $331,000. And so we've worked on that. It's worked its way several years now through the process. It was the last brought in front of the last board in January 2024. It was tabled at that time. They sent us back and had us work on the climate change element chapter, and as well put a little bit more of the Cowlitz County touch onto it. We've got a lot of community leaders and members that have worked on this plan in the room today. And I'm going to turn it over to Adam and kind of like where we are now, what has been worked on, and then we're looking for hopefully a signature on the resolution to get it adopted so we can put it on the shelf. So we have this hazard flood plan in place and we can help our community leaders. So I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you. And thank you for workshopping with us today. We thought that, just watching recent events, recent flooding around the state, really showing us what the hazards of flooding look like. This is a good time to bring this forward again and see if we've got the draft where we need it to be so that it fits this county and the residents and what we need. I was reviewing the plan as we worked to integrate the feedback that we had. It identifies that $3.9 billion in improvements are protected by levies in this county. That's some pretty significant infrastructure, and it's the livelihoods of this county that is behind flood protections. And so what you have in your agenda today is this revised draft of the flood hazard management plan. I did go line by line through this plan and made sure that it's clear in the plan that this is about preparedness, it's about coordination, and it's about emergency management and getting ahead of emergencies. It's not necessarily about regulations. It's not about creating new regulations or imposing rules on residents. The state does have some laws that require management of flood risk, and the county's already adopted those laws. Those are on the books right now. We're current, we're in good standing in that regard. So that's not really what this plan is doing for us. It's not informing that. And you even have a memo from county legal regarding those laws. And so that kind of summarized the regulatory side of it from our county legal staff. But in terms of today, we want to workshop this draft. We want to talk about whether this is where it needs to be so that our county residents and our county infrastructure, is receiving the attention it needs and the coordination among agencies to keep it functioning the way it needs to. There's other items that I looked through when I reviewed this draft. There were some executive orders at the federal level that have been repealed. And so the plan doesn't need to refer to those. It doesn't need to reference those anymore. So I made sure those were removed. We also rewrote chapters that meet the minimum of the state's requirement for its resiliency strategy. There had been a whole bunch of extra discourse in there that it didn't add anything to our plan. It didn't add anything to our planning efforts or our policy or our coordination. So that's been removed and rewritten. It still meets the requirements of the law. This document will do what it needs to do for us and check that box with FEMA and the state so that, the county and county agencies, that includes cities, diking districts, are eligible for funding from FEMA and other sources. So this is actually a vehicle that could bring funds to the county. It's not intended to cost anyone anything. With me, we've got Patrick Harbison, and I just want to make sure that we understand the county is staffing a number of these diking districts. And so in terms of the agencies that coordinate in terms of flood hazard management, that includes the county, and Patrick can kind of speak to that role.
Thanks, Adam. Patrick Harbison, diking engineer for Cowlitz County. We also have the one diking district that we do not manage in-house, CDID1. Amy, their director, is here. I will say that each of these districts, as well as the cities, all have their own elected boards. They've all been heavily involved in the creation of this. And really, I would agree with Adam that this plan is all about coordination and finding the areas where we believe that there may be some opportunities for improvement through capital projects or other coordination efforts. So first step is locating those areas, and then the next step is figuring out how we all can work together to improve them. So the process was heavily public geared with plenty of meetings. I know I attended at least 7 of them with public involved all throughout the county, and all the jurisdictions, I believe, have heavily offered their advice to create this. I believe it's a necessary plan to help when we do get into the emergency situations such as they experienced up in Skagit, that we can all know what we're doing and where our roles are when we get there.
Adam, is this a plan similar to our housing plan that has to be approved by the state and FEMA? The changes that we've made?
Yeah, the first draft had already been approved by the state. This updated draft will go to them as well. Yeah. It'll be the staff in the flood hazard management section.
In January 2024, I believe was the right date. Last time it was here, there were reservations. The reason it didn't get signed then, have those been addressed?
I believe so. Yeah, we've completely rewritten a chapter. And then, like I said, I did the line by line review. So that integrated those comments from January and ones I've received from you recently as well.
So when I went through it, I'm not aware of what the changes were. I just read it as a draft that you had sent. Can you highlight what those changes are for me?
Absolutely. So chapter 10 specifically, it contained a lot of discourse about climate change policy. It contained information about scientific understandings. And what we have in the updated draft is, that which applies to Cowlitz County. At its heart, what we want to do is prepare for the worst case scenario. We want to be prepared for what could happen in our county. And that is what is in chapter 10. So we understand, what we need to prepare for in terms of risk, what the models or predictions might show for us. And then we have policies and actions that can address that risk. So, it's to the point. It doesn't contain anything extra or unnecessary or unrelated to what we're doing here. And then, as I mentioned, I went through each of the action proposals, and I addressed whether or not they're discussing a regulatory approach or a rulemaking approach. And I didn't actually find that many, but there were some references to, this rule shall be, to this standard. As I mentioned, the county is already achieving that. We're in compliance with state law in terms of flood hazard management. All the laws we have on the books are already adopted and in effect. So this plan doesn't need to get into that detail. Beyond that, I removed the reference to executive action at the federal level that is no longer in effect, had been repealed. So those are the main changes.
And one question that I had, and it may not be part of this plan, this might be more for Scott. I noticed there's not much focus on like an evacuation plan. Should something happen, is that not going to be in this, or is that in a different plan, Scott? Okay.
Yeah, if you look at their website, they have a series of different topics they address with the county's hazard plan. Is that what it's called? And
okay.
And really, this is one of the chapters that hasn't been integrated into the county's comprehensive hazard plan. So with adoption, we'll have that part met as well.
So one of the things that I was told about this plan was that for specific homeowners who do not have a flood policy in place outside of what this would provide from FEMA, then they don't have the opportunity to be covered, to receive any recompense, if you will, should a flooding event occur. So I called my insurance broker and I asked that question. I said, if this plan is not in place, am I eligible for FEMA compensation should my house flood? And the answer was, if your home is in a floodplain or if it's in an area that has been flooded and you do not have a separate flood policy on that, then no, you're not eligible if this plan is not in place. So for me, that created a little bit of urgency given the situation that we have been in the last 2 weeks, to make sure that we do what we can to make sure that our citizens are going to be covered should something happen.
Yeah, and that's been weighing on Director Jackson and I as well, that, that's a big factor. That's somebody's livelihood. That's their entire life savings is bundled up in that mortgage and that house. So in addition to that, and related, is having this plan and checking that box for FEMA. It does allow counties and cities to participate in that program that can achieve a reduction in flood insurance rates. So the community rating system is something that the county or cities can participate in with the adoption of this plan, and people can actually save money on that policy.
With that said, we highly encourage any residents that are in a floodplain to not depend purely on FEMA. You'll get pennies on the dollar. Flood insurance is worth it when you're outside a levee in the floodplain.
Yeah, has there been places where this happened? Because when I heard that too, I'm going, what? I've been in mortgage I've done enough, and I've never once had to call the county to get flood insurance on a property. So I'm a little bit skeptical on that. It's not a big deal to me. I'm thinking to me, it was more of a scare tactic than the actual reality. I do have a couple of things for you. Number one, I know the history of this because I was adamantly against it in 2024. But you brought it from 438 pages down to 188 pages. And the reason I was against it, because anytime I see something that puts more restrictions on our taxpayers and our people out here, it gets my attention, and this took them out. And so I appreciate that. You've done a good job of eliminating all what I called the fluff. And I think you've been working with ecology, so I think they'll be okay with this, because ecology even had lunch with me to want to see how we get past this. The other thing I wonder when I go through here, and you talk about generating a river improvement fund, and I'm not saying anything against it. I'm just wondering, do we really have control over, if we have that, how much control do we have? Because we just heard, anytime you have the dike, somehow, somewhere, it sounds like the Army Corps is going to get involved. So how much control do you have, Patrick, can the diking district make just unilateral decisions and do something if it needs to be done?
In regards to the river, there's going to be permitting and whatnot. I'd have to refresh my memory on what that specific.
If you're along the sloughs, is that different or something like that?
The ditches inside the levees, sloughs give a connotation.
Our diking districts would have control over that?
So the diking districts have more control over the ditches inside the levee.
Okay.
But there are plenty of areas in the county that don't have diking districts, and I will refer to Clamor River, and when one of our commissioners got wet 3 weeks ago trying to do some stuff. Up North Cowlitz River between Lexington and Castle Rock, there's plenty of developments, and north of Castle Rock that are along the river that are within the floodplain.
Yeah.
So there are opportunities for this. There are opportunities to try to do bank restoration. There's other opportunities that we're not talking the millions of dollars to dredge. We're talking hundreds of thousands.
My point is just, if we do this, we should be able to do something with it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The other couple things I have, I wonder when we talk about flooding, and this always seems to be, there's two things I think, can we add, or we should maybe look at, because I believe dredging is a viable thing for flooding. I think I think when people think about dredging, if you just ask the general public, they're just looking at these big machines hauling stuff out and putting it on the banks. Well, they can do it in and I learned this on an excursion that Mark took me on that almost killed me. That it's gotten a lot smarter. They can dredge to where they can kind of direct where spoils are to go and keep it away from banks. It's much more advanced or much, they've learned a lot. Yeah. And so I'm wondering if even though the state doesn't like it and whoever doesn't like it, is maybe that should still be part of the plan, that is a flood control feature that we should at least recognize.
Yeah, and that was the top priority for the steering committee, to the extent that we had the consultant write up a kind of pre-written proposal for how you might go about dredging. And so it's certainly in this plan as something that is supported and encouraged as a tool. And then I pulled an excerpt out of that, put it in that email to you, where the plan calls for that.
Okay.
Dredging.
And the other thing that comes to mind is Spirit Lake. I get that the probability of an instance is probably super low, but the outcome of an instance is catastrophic. So I'm wondering if we should at least recognize, because we're bringing this to light about this whole Mount St. Helens. A lot of our talk, when we're talking to our people, we need to start thinking about Spirit Lake. If that lets go, the scientists need to get over themselves and quit with the study stuff, and let's start fixing that thing. And I'm wondering if that should be recognized in here, because that would be something that would devastate this county, these communities. And maybe it needs to be recognized in here.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely support for that Spirit Lake group that is meeting on that problem in this plan. So that part is integrated already. But imagine if it was a slow release that we had to mitigate that hazard, a slow, rapid release, so to speak, not a catastrophic.
Yeah, the rapid release, they can over time, I think the guy gave us a time frame of maybe a decade or so, start to bring that down. It's not something you can just dig a hole and let it go, right?
Yeah.
But it's something you can mitigate over time. And unfortunately, they've known that since that mountain went, and they've just ignored it because scientists took precedence, I guess, over population. But we've talked a lot about, we get questions on how can we bring more awareness, but I think that's part of bringing awareness. We need to recognize that that's an issue, and it should be looked at.
Yeah, and just like that problem has a group working on it, this plan calls for counties and agencies to work together and address the list of problems that we know and maybe don't know as much about, and do the work on those problems, whether it's Alpha Drive or other little areas where we know there are flooding. And so we've kind of already got that working group together. We've got really good agency participation. This plan facilitates that and continues it.
Are you referring to the collaborative?
Yes.
Okay.
And this will make Tracy happy. You guys have done a good job on this.
Thank you.
And I support your work on here. I would ask if you could maybe bring a little more emphasis on these two things. I wouldn't be opposed to that either.
Okay. Yeah, that can easily be done. We could make those changes and bring it forward for adoption in January if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. At least come to I know we're going to make you walk.
Mark Smith. I compliment the staff. They've done an excellent job. Anytime you take 400 and plus pages and you get down to, less than 200, you've done a good job, because that plan can be usable. One of the things, and you're on the key here, and that's why I'm so excited back there chomping up at the bit. We need to get back to being a unique county. We're the most unique county in the lower 48 states that has a volcano sitting upstream. The North Fork Toutle River needs to be also looked as the Cowlitz with this plan, because stabilization is the key to the sediment. As you know, when we all were able to hike up there, there's a couple little things there that we can add, I think would be a benefit. This is not just one county we're talking about because the lake's in Skamania County. So when you go to get federal support and money, we should be reaching to Skamania County to help since they are the headwaters of our problem. So we need their cooperation to help with this solution and stabilizing that area. So I think that would be a really good point to bring up. And then that would help us with seeking some more federal funding to help stabilize that. We want to be unique. We want to bring this up because as the Army Corps was quoted in the paper that if they dredged the Cowlitz, they would have to dredge other tributary streams of the Columbia. That is not a true statement. The Cowlitz is a navigable body of water. It has been. It was even taken to the Supreme Court in 1994 when the court case between the city of Tacoma and Fish and Wildlife were fighting over the Mossy Rock Dam. So, I mean, we just aren't on a list with the Corps somewhere. And so that's one of the problems that we run into. The second is the Seattle Corps, which is in charge of this, even though Portland's doing all the work, because the Seattle Corps District is responsible for all bodies of water north of the Columbia River in the state of Washington. So when you think about that, you have to really think about that again. You know, Seattle has a whole dredge maintenance division that operates year-round on rivers, streams, and lakes. So we need to maybe incorporate a plan working with them to be able to incorporate that with this. And then also DNR, when you go through all of the questions, DNR is the state responsible agency for river beds. So they are responsible for all river beds and lake bottoms. And the DNR is on that Seattle dredging group. So I think we need an opportunity to get with DNR too and make it more active in this plan, not just ecology. So those are my findings that I wanted to pass on. Thank you.
Yeah, and we did have participation from Tacoma Power, which manages the Mayfield Reservoir and the dams there. So they were part of this as well.
Any other questions? Once again, I think you did good work. I appreciate you pairing off that many pages.
It's our pleasure. And yeah, well, if it's acceptable with the board, I'd like to bring back a revised version for adoption in January.
You kind of heard a couple suggestions, maybe try and work those in. Okay.
Add those, and if it looks good, we can adopt it that meeting, hopefully.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Good job.
Okay, I'll give one last call for any public comment before we adjourn. Just don't want to miss anybody if they wanted the opportunity. Okay, I'm seeing none. Have a Merry Christmas. Thanks for being part of this. We will adjourn.